Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Ignite 2020. We're super excited to talk to you about improving customer experiences for government services. My name is Bobby Chang. I'm a Microsoft technical specialist with the business application. We're working very closely with U.S. federal government agencies. I'm joined with a very good friend here, Brian. Brian, say hello to the good people.
Hey everybody, I'm Brian Duncan. I'm a technical specialist working with our state and local government teams.
All right. And Brian and I are super excited to talk to you about customer experiences in government services, right? Because let's face it, right, Brian? Government services have a little bit of bad rep, though, don't they? Right? Think about the time when you're getting your ID, right? Or you're having to actually fill out for a benefit, printing out all these paper forms. Sometimes the experience is a little bit of a dread, right? You're just kind of waiting in there. You don't know what the status is, right? And there's some serious implication if you are a public servant of the government organization and agencies, because research says that there's a one-to-one correlation between the grade of your customer service and actually public trust and perception of your organizations and agencies. So it's super important in terms of how the public views your customer services. And on top of that, dissatisfied citizens and customers are twice more likely to publicly express their unhappiness, right? Whether it's to social media posts or a call to the local representative. And that's not the surprising part of the equation though, right? The surprising part of the equation is that dissatisfied customers, the same exact people, they're not going away. They're actually making a phone call to your government hotlines 3 more times to get that same help that they're not getting. So what do we get on the other line there, Brian?
Usually a dissatisfied customer and this guy.
That's right. This guy, not only this guy, but this guy 3 more times than usual, right? Because this guy's not going away. He's still frustrated. He still needs to get those services, right? So we kind of are now not only putting the tax and getting frustrated customers and citizens in the process, you're also getting unsatisfied employees, tired employees. You might even have issues with employee retention rate and staff satisfaction. Okay? We call this the Yelp review, right, Brian? Right? From a Yelp review perspective, if you like something, you tell probably about 3 people about it. If you don't like something, you tell all of your friends and families, right? But if you think about it, it's not just the bad reputation that's at stake. We're not just talking about bad reviews, not just another Yelp, right? This has some serious complication that literally could be a life and death situation, right? If you think about law enforcement, safety, healthcare, frontline benefits, education, there's some serious implication if the government services are not delivered in an effective way to the citizens that truly depend on these services being delivered. So amplify with the fact that we're in the world that we're living in now, right? The fact that Brian and I are streaming to you all completely virtually for one of the biggest conferences that Microsoft provide any given year, right, is telling in itself. Everybody's in the transition, everybody's in the shift. We're all learning to adjust to this concept of this new normal, including this big conference that we're streaming live completely virtually to everybody on the other side there. So government services is no different. Globally, services are on a transition phase in terms of what government has to do now with the shrinking labor market, in terms of financial hits that we're getting globally, right? Government still needs to be able to provide these services to citizens around them and do it in a way that's a little bit more efficient. So technology modernization is no longer an option. It is a necessity in order to be able to facilitate these services to the citizens, right? And what's fascinating over the last 8, 9, 10 months is that we're seeing some transformational stuff where technology is sitting in the middle of that to be able to facilitate a lot of this digital modernization across our government services, right? If you think about the remote learnings we're doing or across our virtual remote offering, right? The virtual court proceedings, these have to continue. And we are putting technology to the test from a standpoint of being able to deliver those services and innovating day in and day out. On top of that, you're thinking about all these first responders, right? This crisis management personnel, even putting in augmented reality to be able to further enhance these experiences is something that, I think it's just extraordinary in terms of the use cases that we continue to peel and have technology drive those different conversations. So from a standpoint of what we're going to focus on today, and what we're going to show you from the standpoint of customer services, we want to talk about government customer services being able to deliver to you and your organization using the Power Platform services. Now, we're going to focus on customer services for our walkthrough, But before we do that, we just want to level set to make sure that you understand that Power Platform can provide a slew of use cases, right? We're talking about extension of Office 365. Brian and I are talking to a lot of organization that's modernizing SharePoint Designer, workflow, InfoPath forms, right? All those modernization effort from legacy application and on-premises solutions that need to modernize to be mobile first, and cloud ready. On top of that, we're extending this Office 365 offering. We're doing things like whether it's a third-party application or application that you create using the Power Platform in context and showing that in Teams. So whether you're chatting, having a meeting like we're doing right now, we are having a group conversation, we're collaborating on files. We can also have an input application and form directly in context inside of Teams, something that we're really proud to be able to deliver to you natively inside of the Power Platform. On top of that, the other use case that the Power Platform can also provide is extending this concept of legacy application, right? When rip and replace, for example, is not an option because all those components that's on the back end essentially have all these components that is reading into it. When we have so much business processes aligned with business data that is tied into a back-end application, maybe we don't take the whole thing and throw it away, right? Brian, we talked about, in a couple of nights ago, there was a huge use case from Microsoft IT that's shown as a case study, which is called a Thrive application, right? Now you and I have to go in, all Microsoft personnel have to go in, we have to provide reporting on our time and absence reporting, and it's all sitting on a 20-plus-year-old database backend. There's so many things that reads into it. Instead of ripping and replacing that old legacy application, we simply just put a fresh modern UI using the Power Platform, still reading into those native legacy application that's sitting on the back end. So whether you're talking about departmental solutions using the Power Platform or end-to-end mission critical enterprise application that is rolled out wide to the entire organization, Power Platform definitely covered the whole gamut. What we love about customer service, and when we talk about crisis response, pandemic response, right, is really putting the strength of this Power Platform to bear, right? As you see the solution that's available right now and worldwide, you can actually check this out, the link at your leisure. All these solutions are available for your organization to take and be able to download and actually configure that to meet your own processes, your own needs. The latest solutions that we just rolled out is the return to workplace solution. It's gonna be able to help you and your staff to be able to come in with full insights, knowing what they're getting themselves into and being able to facilitate how many people are in a facility at any given time. Again, all of these solutions are provided for you on the ready and available to you. Going back to what Brian and I are going to focus on today, which is proactive service, which is our always on enabled services from a customer perspective. What does that really mean? What Brian and I are going to focus on today is simple, right? We're going to show you how to engage citizen and customer and increase the engagement level and further improve on the satisfaction of the citizen. Number two, we're going to enhance the agent, the employee, the staff that's on the back end that now has to respond to the citizen. How do we empower those people to make sure that they have all the data, all the information that they need so they can respond appropriately? So that's essentially our focus today. We're going to be able to do all of that from a data-driven approach, giving those people insights and knowing where they are in any given level. So what we want to show is showing that customer service, how to be proactive, how to stay engaged, but at the same time, we want to tie that into the pandemic response story. So we said, what better way to just bring this up and talk to you about our contract tracing application.
Hey everybody, so Bobby, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to present with you. Very few people, Bobby, can make a slide deck exciting, and you did a great job of putting some energy into the room.
Checks in the mail, Brian. Appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome for that. So, Bobby, when we talked about this, what we just decided to do is that we said, we didn't want to just simply do a slide deck presentation and talk about all the wonderful features of the Power Platform, because we can talk about the Power Platform till we're blue in the face, right? But I think it's going to be more impactful, specifically for our customers and the people who are using our platform, to really be able to see some of those benefits. Where does the rubber meet the road, so to speak, or put your money where your mouth is, right? So some of those concepts that you mentioned, like not wanting to rip and replace, being able to respond quickly to changing scenarios. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to present some of the workloads that we've been kind of thrust into over the past 6 months and the way the world has changed so significantly. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is we say contact tracing, but in reality, you're going to see that there's a little bit more to that. So first of all, Bobby, a year ago, if I had asked you what social distancing was, what would you have said?
Man, maybe a little less hug, little less high five, Brian.
Yeah. And what would you have said if I said, well, we got to do some contact tracing?
Yeah, I would have no clue, Brian. Please enlighten me, sir.
Well, exactly, because a year ago, most of these things were just either a portion of an application that very few people really touch and work with every day. And just a few months later, the world changed, and here we are today with everything that's happening, including the fact that, as you know, we are now working from home. I am working downstairs in my house from in front of a fireplace because my home office is filled with 2 kids that are taking their classes online today. So things have changed significantly. So first of all, let's talk about a real world scenario where the Power Platform came up to the plate and just knocked it out of the park for our customers and also for our employees and our staff as well. Because during this whole crisis, one of the things that really became apparent is our own staff and our own Microsoft employee group, they really stood up and said, hey, we want to do something, we want to help. And this is a great story that I think shows not only the power of the platform, but the power that we're able to bring to the community through change. So first of all, let's define what it is we're going to be talking about today. So what is contact tracing? So contact tracing is really just letting people know that they've been potentially exposed to COVID-19 and then tracking all the communications and interactions that they've had. But it's really kind of an evolved story, an evolved situation, because it didn't start with contact tracing. Nobody called us up and said, hey, in March, we need to start doing contact tracing. It really started with a couple of small workloads, things like doing simple online assessments to determine if somebody should be tested, and then pre-registration to get them in, to get them tested and get the results out quickly so we can find out if somebody is positive for COVID-19, followed by scheduling and booking all the different facilities, which led to the concept of, hey, now that we have all this data coming in from the front door, knowing where people are coming from, where they're feeling ill, where they need to go to get tested, we should probably take it to that next level and add that contact tracing component. And what really happened is it kind of evolved from there, and we saw workloads come out, including antibody testing, contact tracing with antibody testing, call center rollouts where we're wrapping call center capabilities around people's at-home workstation. Very interesting component there. So think about this, Bobby. Do you have a call center in your house?
Last time I checked, I don't think so, Brian.
Right. In fact, not only do I not have a call center in my house, but just to kind of show you, this is my mouse right now. My mouse today is a pizza peel. All right. My mouse doesn't work on the stand-up desk that I'm using. So we're kind of making do with what we can. So imagine if you're now tasked with rolling out a call center with thousands and thousands of state staff that are no longer able to come to their data center every day. Instead, they have to stay home. They don't have access to their multi-million-dollar systems, to their call centers, to their IVRs. So some of these challenges that were presenting itself came out very early on, and some of the things that we were able to step up and solve for them is really quite amazing. So what we want to do is we want to actually walk through and show you a real-world scenario of this system as it was built back in March. And it would give you a little bit of story. It was March 19th, and I know that because I went back and I looked at my schedule. It was March 19th of this year that I got a phone call from one of our customers down in Washington, D.C. area. And they called to ask about if there was anything that we could do to help with some of the crisis that was unfolding before us. They presented some of their scenarios and some of their concerns around how are we going to be able to determine, first of all, who's sick? How can we get people in? How can we assess them, get them tested to ensure that they are either safe or we need to now start isolating and quarantining people to prevent the spread of this horrible disease. So in March 19th, I got that call in the afternoon. We sat down with the customer, we went through the requirements, and we realized that there was really nothing in the market at that time that was capable of providing all of the unique unique solutions that were needed to fit this scenario. We needed to roll it out extremely fast. It needed to be extremely intuitive, because Bobby, let me ask you this. With the way things moved back in March and April, how long do you think you would have to be able to sit down a group of volunteers and train them? Do you think we'd be able to give them 3 weeks to learn a new system? A month?
I'm thinking minutes and hours, Brian.
Exactly. So we had to make something that was fast to market, something that was intuitive, something that was accessible for all customers, all constituents. It can't just be something that caters to technology people. It can't just be something that you have a cell phone and you're able to text and you're able to download an app. It had to be accessible to the entire public. So we were met with a lot of challenges. We had a very short time to market, and we had to put something together. So we did a little bit of research. The team got together, and 48 hours later, so on Saturday, March 21st, we presented this demo that you're about to see to our first 2 customers. And Bobby, I'm happy to say that not only was it very popular and well accepted, but within a week, it was rolled out to our first 2 customers and is now spread across the country. It's expanded to several different implementations, including the ARIAS, the at-risk identification and alerting system, which is Microsoft's version of contact tracing. So With no
I
further,
can't wait to get started, Brian. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let the people know that we do have folks, awesome colleagues like Al Smith and Donovan Good waiting on the other side of the Q&A, right? We know that this is a virtual setting. We're going to try to make the best out of it. So please keep those questions, inquiries, comments coming in, because we have our awesome, really smart colleagues waiting on the other side of that Q&A to be able to address your questions and concerns.
Great point, Bobby. In fact, Al and Donovan are two of the best people in the company. And so we're going to put a challenge out there. See if you can't stump them as we go. Ask them some questions that maybe they get caught up on, and it'll be interesting to see a question that they might not be able to field. But what we want to do is we want to walk through a real scenario of this system as it was presented 48 hours after it was built. Demonstration of end-to-end solution presented by the Power Platform in Dynamics 365. And I'm going to cue this up with a fictional character. Let's call it, say, Tony Stark. Tony Stark starts at home, and in March, April, this is what was happening. People were home and they weren't feeling well. And Bobby, what is the most frustrating thing about getting on a call with the government and getting into a phone queue? Waiting, right? Do you like getting on a phone call and waiting? Nobody likes waiting in line at the DMV. They're probably not going to want to get on a phone call and wait to see what they need to do to go get tested. So one of the first things we need to do is implement some sort of ability to create self-service capabilities for our customer constituent base. That way they could log on to an online portal or go to a site on their own cell phone, answer some questions, do a quick assessment, and determine whether or not they should or shouldn't be tested based upon a configurable algorithm that our customers are able to adjust to determine based upon the risk category of everybody where they should be headed to. So let's watch this particular demonstration as we kick it off. And it starts with our COVID-19 testing portal where Tony Stark logs on to answer a few questions about his symptoms, some demographic information. It's also an interactive question set which has multiple dimensions. So it can be intelligent and guide you down different paths based upon the answers to previous questions. But what it's doing is it's collecting the information that's allowing their customers, our state and local or federal government, to be able to assess this particular individual for their risk category and then determine if they want to then pre-register this person for testing. In most of the cases, they just sent everybody in for the pre-registration where you're able to collect their information, determine when and where they can go to get tested, and send them to a nearby testing center. Now, at this time, Bobby, what was happening was they were under the impression that the volume of people coming in was going to be so great that they weren't sure if they were going to be scheduling people or if they just simply wanted to show up at the nearest drive-through or makeshift testing center. So what we did is we built a system that was able to support both. Here, we're first of all just filling out information. We're going to submit this information. And when we submit this information, it then tells us, thank you. We are going to now pre-register you for a COVID-19 test, and we're going to send you a custom email and or text messages. One of the important parts of this particular demonstration was it needed to serve multiple channels of communication. So now Tony Stark, if he's more comfortable receiving a text message, can receive a text message. If he wants to receive an email, he can receive an email. He could even just receive an outreach from a phone call if necessary. But what we're showing Tony now are all the makeshift testing centers that are near him that he can then hop in the car and go to. Now, what we did later on with some of our customers is we implemented a booking system through Dynamics 365 as well, where instead of just simply being told, please at your convenience go to your nearest drive-through testing center and get in line, we were then present the screen to the customer to say, please choose your best date and time where they could then book their appointment and go get tested. But what's important here is we wanted to also expedite the process of what happens when somebody gets at that particular testing center. Because as we mentioned, we weren't sure if we were going to be dealing with hundreds of thousands, or even millions of tests that we were going to be processing. And now in hindsight, we did know exactly the volume of the testing that was going to take place. So after submitting that particular information through the portal, Tony Stark at home then receives this particular email here. So as you read through, it's just an email specific for Tony to let him know that he's registered to go to any of the nearest testing centers, and he can bring this email, because at the bottom of this email, you'll see a nice QR code. That QR code is specific to our system, and it's designed to now solve one of the next requirements that was presented to us, which was the ability to reduce infection points and expedite that testing component. Think about this, Bobby. How helpful would it be if everybody did what they were supposed to do, wore their mask, did their social distancing, stayed 6 feet apart from one another, got in line outside of a testing center in New York City, only to walk through the same exact door, go to the same exact registration desk, sign with the same exact pen and paper, then go over and sit in the same exact waiting stools. We're creating infection points there. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to protect our healthcare workers. We also wanted to expedite the process for Tony and his family, because he can register multiple people through that portal to come through. And we wanted to make it very easy to not only find the registration data, but process the test kit itself and move it on. So here, Tony now has the ability to just simply print out his email. So he can go up and print this email and bring it with him. Or if he's tech savvy and he has it on his cell phone, he could just show up at the nearest drive-through or makeshift testing center and bring his cell phone. But that QR code is really the thing that we want now. So now we can print this document out. Tony can hop in his car. He can drive to the nearest testing center or go stand 6 feet away from somebody else in a line wrapped around a block in New York City. And he can wait to have that QR code scanned. So now let's talk about where this goes from here. So Tony has now, with self-service, logged on, determined that he potentially has COVID-19 or should probably go get tested for, has scheduled his test, could potentially schedule his entire family for testing and show up with all of his kids and his wife in the car with one set of QR codes that they can look up through his email address. He has printed out his email or he's brought his phone, but now we have that first interaction with the all-important frontline healthcare worker. And we cannot emphasize enough how important it was for our customers to ensure the protection and safety of all those frontline healthcare workers. So all those frontline healthcare workers, we wanted to recognize the fact that they were going to be working with PPE on. They were going to be working in usually makeshift environments, sometimes in a parking lot, sometimes in a tent in a parking lot, sometimes in a building that was retrofitted for something else or in a mall. Also, we were going to have a lot of volunteers, weren't we, Bobby? We estimated that the number of people that were going to come out and help was going to be greater than the actual people who were already staffed to execute these particular types of tests. And as we talked about, it wasn't going to work to be able to lock these people in a room to say, hey, sit down for 3 weeks and learn how to use this app. Not going to happen. Also, we needed to enable mobile capabilities because sometimes these parking lots don't have connectivity. Sometimes, even if you step outside the building that you're working in, you lose your connectivity. So we wanted to make sure that we kept connectivity the entire time for those frontline healthcare workers and expedite the process. So now, if I am Joe healthcare worker or Susie healthcare worker and Tony Stark pulls up at that makeshift testing center with his QR code, I can now just show up at site. Maybe I'm a volunteer or maybe I'm a staff worker. I can go and grab one of the devices that are on site. Maybe it's an iPhone, maybe it's an Android device, maybe it's a tablet. But we built a Power App. And in the Power Apps, we built a suite of tools, including something called the COVID-19 screening tester. And Bobby, if you look at this, it's very simple. I can either scan a registration code or search an email, and watch what happens when I scan that QR code. It instantly finds Tony Stark's information and pulls it up. I don't have to type in information. I don't have to wait. I get to see his details. I get to see his risk status. I can correct information that may have been entered wrong through the portal. And then I can very quickly register the test through a test kit. And watch what happens right here. Right now, I'm now going to scan the test kit's QR code onto Tony Stark's information. So now Tony's pulled up to the makeshift testing center. He's rolled down his window. He's scanned his QR code. We found out who he is immediately. We were able to enter information, change it to whatever we wanted to, then reach over, take a test kit, pull it out, scan, administer the test rather, scan the barcode for that test kit and attach it to Tony's information. Now that particular test is attached to Tony Stark. And that's very important because as you know, and as you mentioned, rip and replace doesn't work. Rip and replace doesn't work. And so guess what happened when we showed up to town and said, hey, we now have this new process that we have to implement for this disease that didn't exist a year ago. They said, well, we already have a lot of systems in place, right, Bobby? Like laboratory systems, right? They said, we already have a lab system. Almost every one of our customers said, we already have a system in place where our labs who administer tests then report results. And we said, fine, we are the Power Platform people. We have over 300 connectors available to us and a bunch of different ways to allow access to that data. One of them was our portal itself. So notice if we sign into this portal now, we can extend our business process to our affiliate base. So here, maybe this represents one of our customers who doesn't have access to a laboratory system. If you see here, they can log in, they have full access to Tony Stark's information, including that specimen ID that was scanned on, and they can now check the test and determine that Tony is indeed positive for COVID-19 and finalize that particular test result. Now, the reality is what you just saw almost never happened with any of our customers because that particular application already existed outside. So what did we do? We used those 300 connectors. We used Power Automate. We used the Power Platform. We used Dynamics 365. We used creative connectivity to be able to find out how and where our data needed to be and when, and we created the processes around it to allow us to simply step in and work with those tools that are there. There's no need to rip and replace. There's no need to throw babies out with bathwater. At Microsoft, we like babies, and bathwater is relatively cheap. So let's throw out the bathwater. Let's keep the baby. Let's continue moving on and work with the systems that you have, right, Bobby? So
absolutely, Brian. I just want to add one more thing, though, right, Brian? I mean, you walk through a couple of device point and different form factor from a standpoint of different interaction, right? The frontline worker, the healthcare, the folks that we want to make sure that keep safe with their PPE, standing 6 feet apart, in a as socially distanced way as possible while people are coming in and trying to get tested. What's good about that is not only is the application sitting on the ready on the mobile devices, you're really using the native Power Apps mobile application, aren't you? So meaning like, I can come in there with my iOS. If I'm a volunteer with Android, if I was lucky enough to have my Surface Duo, I can go in there and just simply download the Power Apps mobile application, or actually use it through the mobile browser natively inside of my mobile devices, and get that app up and running in a secure way where IT can actually control who can consume the application, who is the right role, who can actually run this application in context of my organization, so that I can get up and running from an organization perspective and be able to just do my job and in a secure way from a centralized IT perspective. So I really love that story, Brian. I just wanted to throw it out there and make sure that that's included in part of our story here.
Bingo, Bob. You hit the nail right in the head. One of the primary benefits of the Power Platform in that particular Power App is not only is it intuitive to use, as you saw, push button, scan, enter data, right, or search email address. They could learn it on the way from getting the device out of their desk and walking out to the parking lot. It's that simple, right? But not only that, as these things that we've learned, we're rolling out changes to these systems constantly, because the only thing that is constant since everything has taken place back in March is change. Things are constantly changing, and the only way that we can respond to them is with tools such as the Power Platform to be able to update those. So as we add features to the Power Apps, we also don't have to teach those healthcare workers who may be volunteers or may not be familiar with the Power Platform how to update the application on their device, because the next time they launch it, it updates. It also works in a disconnected mode. So if they go out into their parking lot and they don't have connectivity, when they scan Tony Stark's information can still come up for them. So great point. Additionally, with our portal component, let's say they didn't need access to that Power App, right, Bobby? If they didn't need access to the Power App, they could have logged in just like you just saw this quote-unquote lab worker logging in to mark this specimen positive. That same information that's available on the Power App is also available through our portal. And that all important component of identity management is something that I think we should mention here too, right, Bobby? How difficult is it to build a new custom system? One of the most difficult parts to roll out. Where is our user store? How do we implement it? How do we work with it? How do we extend it to people outside of our network? Well, with the Power Platform and portals, you can not only use external identity providers, you can use your internal identity provider to authenticate internally to Power Apps, and you can extend that user base for your portal usage as well. So now, where did we just end? Tony Stark is now positive. Tony Stark is now positive for COVID-19. And this was what became very important early on as well. Up until this point in time, in April, what were we seeing in the news, Bobby? We were seeing reports on this is how many people are sick and this is how many people have passed, right? Well, that's backdoor information. Backdoor information tells us what happened. We wanted front door information telling us what is going to happen. How can we adjust our resources to accommodate the influx of activity that we can predict? So now by seeing upticks in assessments in certain counties or seeing an uptick in positive rates in certain areas, we can predict where that particular wave of COVID was traveling and how we could respond in our community to get real actionable intelligence. And that's what you're about to see here, because as we cross over from the concept of being able to test and determine if somebody's positive, we now have that next all-important and crucial step of tracing all their connectivity. So here, first of all, you're going to see that all-important front-end information, an interactive dashboard where the admin staff can log in and say, show me the people who've been positive and who are at high risk, and show me the list of people I need to follow up on. And now we go into our areas system where we see Tony Stark is in our investigations list. And Tony Stark, who is now positive for COVID-19, is entered into the at-risk identification and alerting system where we identify him as a high-risk individual because he's positive for COVID, and we assign a caseworker to him, which now initiates our monitoring process in the at-risk identification and alerting system. So from Microsoft, we created a contact tracing approach that we called ARIAS. As I said a couple times, at-risk identification and alerting system. And the way this works is like this. So Bobby, you're a pretty tech-savvy guy, right?
I hope so, Brian. I'm trying to keep up with you, man.
You're working with for Microsoft. You and I probably have a better opportunity to be able to interact with government services through our phones, through our devices, through computers, because it's our natural way of communicating, right? And as such, there's also a group of people that perhaps may need a little bit more hand-holding to be able to do things like reach out to them and communicate with them that they've been contacted. So the concept of our contact tracing system was simple. For the people who were willing and able to conform, to be compliant with our quarantine requirements and be willing to use technology to monitor and inform us as to what was happening, let's build a system that takes that low-hanging fruit off of the table for our contact tracers. Because Bobby, how much time do you have in a day to work? Now, I know you're working from home, but do you have enough time to call 1,000 people today?
Oh man, it'll be tough.
It would be tough. So what we did is we built a system around contact tracing and said, let's take that low-hanging fruit off of the table so that we can then implement a process where that process gives our contact tracers the opportunity to highlight the people that truly need our time, the people who are not compliant, the people who we can't find or do not use technology. So here is how the contact tracing component works. Tony Stark was just listed as monitoring. He was put into a monitoring state. We assigned a contact tracer to him. And now through another channel of communication, Tony receives a text message with a link in it. It could also be an email, but this was a text message to show another line of communication. And it opens up what we call a patient interview. And now what we want to do is we want to collect all important information from him. And rather than making that phone call out to him right away, if we can send information to him and he's willing to present it to us, he can do that. And notice right here, he actually is asking to chat with us rather than start to fill out this survey. Why is that? Because he just received a text message and he may not want to communicate. And we open up another line of communication with our call center staff. So here, he just opened up a chat window because Tony's a little bit suspicious about a text message that came in that he may not want to respond to. But he did see a chat window down there, and he opened up a chat window. And that brings us back to that concept of this. I am using a pizza peel for a mouse, right? We don't have call centers at our houses. Our state staff didn't have call centers at our houses. So how do we enable complex chat? Well, we do it through chatbots. We do it through chat enablement. We do it through our omni-channel capabilities in Dynamics 365. So now Tony's just opened up a chat because he's not sure if he wants to actually engage in our automated communication. And now watch what happens. Tony now opens up a chat window with our call center person who sees a pop-up that could be a phone call, it could be an email message, or several different channels of communication. The call center staff is able to see not only his pre-survey questions, but he's able to then walk through things like agent guidance scripts to understand what questions to ask and which path to address and move Tony into. The call agent can also communicate back and forth, use the knowledge article searching and search component to be able to find knowledge articles to share with this particular individual and answer questions right online live. And why is that important? Because if Tony didn't receive the answers he wanted, we may have missed an opportunity to alleviate some of the workload inside of our government and give Tony a better experience for his contact tracing. Instead, we tell Tony, listen, we're only going to send you automated surveys twice a day. If you agree to conform to them, that's great. If you don't, you don't have to. But if you don't, we're going to have to manually contact trace you. He now agrees to do that, which just saved our contact tracing staff plenty of work. And now he's able to click on that survey button and enter some information to verify that he is receiving and answering the questions that are assigned to him. We're now able to use a CAPTCHA to verify that it is him and the fact that it's not a robot attacking our systems. He agrees to participate. If he decides to opt out, we can track that as well. And then he answers some basic questions, all configurable on our platform to determine when did he get sick, whether or not he's symptomatic, date that his first symptoms appeared, and also his quarantine information. Where is he going to quarantine? How many people are in his household? Information such as that. Submitting this information is extremely important because now we get to see, as he's adding a contact here, that he was within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes of an individual by the name of Brian Duncan. And now he can submit that, which goes into our contact tracing staff to inform them of a potential exposure that Tony Stark thinks that he may have had. He can also add things like places and events to that as well.
Now, I love that, Brian, because that's the concept that we're talking about from a standpoint of being customer service, being proactive, right? From a self-service perspective, you're able to come in, you're able to do self-reporting. You can do it at your own time from the mobile device that will be able to render the portal in the form factor that you're in, whether you're in iOS or Android, to be able to have a chat with agents sitting on the back end. You know, I love because it kind of ties in all the components that we tried to push here from a standpoint of modernization, right? You heard in the keynote that Satya says by 2023, 85% of interactions for most organizations' processes are going to be handled to the self-service mode. So,
Incredible.
Brian, I'm wondering if you can speak to, I mean, I love the fact that, you're empowering agents so that people are asking the agent specific questions. The agent can then go in to actually get very self-guided guidance on the right-hand side there to be able to know how to respond back to that particular inquiry from the customers and the citizens. But can you speak to, maybe the fact that we can even automate that a little bit more, right? Like, as we know the types of question that comes in, there could be even AI and machine learning sort of in the process there. So maybe we don't even interject the agent interaction unless it needs to be escalated to get to the agent, right? Unless it's a tough question that we don't know yet how to best answer. Can you speak to a little bit about the self-service component that you can cater the chatting experience from a self-service perspective there, Brian?
Well, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. AI and self-service are the wave of the future. We've already seen it happening, and several of our customers, they did just that, Bobby. In fact, some of the system was solved rather than having a live chat agent. We implemented intelligent chatbots using AI to navigate decision trees to guide people in the appropriate directions. And what that does is it does the same thing that we've talked about from the beginning. It's another way that the Power Platform steps up to the plate, solves a problem, and improves the customer experience from not only the constituent perspective, but also our staff. Because I don't know if you've heard the phrase, do more with less, but never in the history since, I think, the Great Depression have our government employees been under so much stress to do more with less in a time when revenues are down. So anytime we can get a little extra helping hand, I think it's absolutely the thing to do. So now, going forward, oops, I went backwards. Let's try the forward component. There we go. So now, once again, we come back to an interactive dashboard where we can track our contact tracing components. We can see how many people we're monitoring, how many people have come back as suggested exposures, how many of those suggested exposures are positive. And what all this is really doing is it's giving our contact tracers these lists of things. So first of all, I get to see that Tony Stark is now compliant. He's compliant because he's responded to our survey. And he's responded to our survey within 24 hours of our request. And now I can see the suggested exposures that he's submitted through the website. I can see the answers to the surveys that he's been giving. I can even track the responses to those surveys as they go through time. We also get to see all of that information bubbling up from the dashboard perspective to be able to give our contact tracers a single view of the constituent. So here in our timeline controls, that co-development, notice it's not integration, it's co-development with the Office 365 suite of tools and the tools that they're used to using every day. We can track the phone calls, the email communication, the text, the SMS, the chat. It truly is that concept of a single point of view of the customer. And now we can narrow that down into the most important lists for all of our staff working the contact tracing, highlight the things that we need to work on, eliminate the things that we don't need to focus on. The people who are being compliant, Bobby, you're going to be compliant. I'm going to be compliant because we're going to contact trace. We're going to respond to those surveys. But there may be somebody across town who doesn't have email, doesn't have SMS. We need to now go out and maybe make a phone call or two or go on site to do that contact tracing. And what we're able to bubble up to the surface for these contact tracers are the lists of people who are compliant, people who've opted out of the surveys, people who are symptomatic and not compliant, people who are symptomatic and are not tested yet. These are the things that we need to focus on to ensure that we're knocking down the COVID-19 process. And so that's a quick walkthrough of the full end-to-end demonstration that was created. And as you mentioned in the beginning, one of the powers of the Power Platform is its time to market. And so the benefit of our low-code app development focus for innovation of software platforms comes down to several different categories. And they can be discussed in the form of increased agility, cost savings, collaboration, insights, and innovation as well. Right, Bobby?
Absolutely. I'm just wondering too, Brian. I mean, you layered in quite a bit of component of the solution, right? As the architect that got that phone call in March, that, hey, Brian, we need help here, right? We got a lot of challenges from a standpoint of being able to report, being able to inform citizens in the right way and safe manner. Since there's so many moving pieces, tell me how long this thing got for this thing to get stood up, Brian. I mean, you must have like 14 developers and at least about 2 months to build this thing, right?
So Bobby, before coming to Microsoft, I was a state employee for 13 years. I was a custom developer working with state government since 1980. And so since as far back then, I've been building custom software. And if somebody were to have come to me and said they needed all this functionality, I would have told them that I was going to need probably at least 4 to 6 months and probably a very advanced team to do it. The demo that you just saw was presented in less than 48 hours from the time it was requested, with the MCS team, which had come together, the consulting services team within Microsoft, They came together and used that demonstration as a starting point for the concept of the platform that they've been built and started deploying all throughout the country. They had their first deployment within the first week, which just simply wouldn't have been possible with any other technologies. And not only did they deploy it there, but they actually decided that this was something that they really wanted to run with across the world. And within weeks, it was rolled out to several dozen customers, including states, municipalities, prison systems, agencies, state agencies. There's a lot of our customers that have used a version or a module or some component of these systems that you're seeing here. And the reality is everything you just saw, there was barely a line of source code in any of it as well.
Yeah, and we hear that, right, Brian? From a standpoint of, hey, anybody can develop, right? Anybody can come in, because you put in the hand of the business and mission, the folks that really know how to get up and running, they know their requirements best, right? So if we can increase the competency from a standpoint of the business feeling comfortable in using low code, no code, I then, if I were a .NET shop, if I had a C# background, I'm now asking you, right, Brian, like, you're telling me that there's no place for me here, because this is a low code, no code world in the Power Platform. What do you say to those people, Brian?
Well, the Power Platform is really about the democratization of application development, right? The reality is there's an awful lot of smart problem-solving individuals in the world that, when given the appropriate tools, can solve problems. And we see those stories all over, especially here at Ignite, Bob. And I love seeing those stories where people have taken the initiative, because they're just great problem solvers. And when you take the barrier of knowing software development languages away from those individuals, they're able to produce some outstanding results. But like anything, it's not just the people who are good problem solvers that are going to be there. Our developers are not going to go away. Our DBAs are not going to go away. They're going to become the superstars on this platform. They're going to be the ones that we go to, because they have the fundamental knowledge of how to actually build solutions from a foundational perspective. And all they need to do is adapt the way that they're doing it to the way that Power Platform can enable them. And I tell a story frequently. A lot of times I get the question, you're trying to replace developers. And I tell the story frequently, but if you think back to many, many years ago, Bobby, well, how did the carpenter build a house?
By hand, by bare hand, sir.
With a hammer. Now, when we invented the nail gun, did we get rid of carpenters? No. Yeah. We just made it so that same carpenter, instead of building one house in a month, can build 5 houses in a month, right? And that's what we're doing with the Power Platform. We're putting a power tool into the hand of those developers. And I would also follow this up with this. I'm a decent carpenter, but if you give me a nail gun, I can probably build you a pretty crooked house, right? So just because you have a nail gun doesn't necessarily mean you're going to build everything correctly. So the nice thing about having those developers and those people with the deep-seated knowledge of how to build applications as part of your governance structure and your application lifecycle management approach is those developers are actually going to be your superstars. They're going to be your Babe Ruths. They're going to be the ones to lead your organization in a new path. But the difference is, instead of sitting around maintaining 5 legacy applications that have been around for 30 years, they're going to build the 25 new applications that they just have never had the time, the resources, or money to do, because it just didn't, again, the do more with less philosophy, eventually you have to do less with less. And now the Power Platform is giving them that ability to do more. And additionally, those core developers also have our Azure services and our data foundation through API management, et cetera, to extend that custom development capability. So we're never going to really leave our developers in the past, because they are, as you mentioned, our superstars.
I love that analogy, Brian, of the carpenter, right? I mean, I don't know the difference between a drill bit and a screwdriver, right? So for me, don't tell me to put frames up. Don't tell me to put the drywalls. I'm not going to do that the right way. But I think I can hang up that picture on the wall, right? So the fact that we can kind of put together that using the carpenter technology, with the contractor, with the carpenter, with a true developer, co-develop together in an environment that's safe. From an element perspective, you can have an IT pro governance components, administrative component to develop apps the safe way that fits the compliance needs. Because let's face it, in the regulated industry, and you and I work with, a lot of times half the conversation that we're having is around compliance and security control, right, Brian? So from a standpoint of ALM and being able to push features out to the right environment for the right people in the right role-based security control, we love our ALM story that just got, frankly, a lot stronger today, right? With the GitHub integrations, with a lot of the built actions that's going to be put in nice and neat and even presented in the Canvas apps way. If you haven't checked out some of the GitHub announcements that's going to be announced today and through the tech community post, definitely want to check that out, because our story just got a lot stronger today with the GitHub components that's going to be built in right for ALM and DevOps inside of the Power Platform.
Exactly. And as you mentioned so eloquently, our developers, one of the common messages that comes to me, their developers say, well, what about application lifecycle management? This is the way we've always done things. This is the way we've always done things. And to go back to that carpenter analogy, building a house still takes the same process. You can't put the roof on before the foundation is poured. You still need to create blueprints, and that's what our developers are going to be working with. Your process that you use to build software should very rarely change, especially in the beginning when you use new tools. So rather than coming around the gate and saying you're now using Power Platform, throw away your entire software development lifecycle process. That's something that we never look to do. We never look to rip and replace anything. We look to accentuate the tools that they're using and expedite the processes. Over time, some of them can change, but what we've done is we've wrapped that application lifecycle management capabilities that our developers are so used to, and is absolutely imperative to be able to create successful development projects. We've wrapped that around our cloud approach as well with our DevOps opportunities, also our GitHub integration to be able to say the same tools you're familiar with and the same processes you use, dropping back to 0 day, knowing what changes a developer made. What happened if John left the agency and went somewhere else, and then we need to figure out how he developed something. All of that is now available for our developers, so our developers can feel right at home from a cloud-based approach to software development. So Bobby, Power Platform and government, what we've just talked about, and I hope what we've been so far summarizing here is we do have a complete platform. It is a connected platform with multiple interfaces. It's a multiple approach to, or multiple faceted approach to problem solving, giving people not only accessibility that's required in our state and local government approach and our federal government approach, but also that connectivity and that integration with over 300 connectors. So Bobby, tell everybody a little bit about the Power Platform, the innovation-driven platform as we see it today, where it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go ahead and actually take the control again here, Brian.
Sure.
Right, just to do a quick recap of where we stood, right? Because we did a whirlwind of components that's wrapped around customer service from a standpoint of being responsive in the time where being responsive is literally how you respond correctly and effectively to be able to meet your business objectives, right? So from a customer service perspective, you saw the ability to stay engaged with your citizens, with your customer. So at the same time, empowering the staff and your agent with the right knowledge at the right time bring your own device, bring your own browser scenario, right? Regardless of where you sit, you should be able to get that right information to engage properly from a standpoint of standing in the back office. Brian showed you a lot of the components from a data-driven perspective to be able to push the right information to the top in terms of whom they should actually be interacting with. Some folks that might be a little bit more high risk, some folks that we might need to reach out from a contact tracing perspective because they can't comply through technology because of technology challenges or lack of technology availability, right? So having insights to be able to hone in on key component and key data is definitely something that we know it's a huge value proposition from a standpoint of Power Platform. There's also components like Power BI, right? They can be bringing to bear here as well from a standpoint of being able to prioritize data and actually even project trends, use AI and machine learning to see, hey, this is where we are from a data estate perspective. Where are we going to be in 5 months from now, right? And some of the components like natural query language process is what I love, right? I think R is a letter, Brian. I don't think R is a language, right? But if your R is a language, right, Power BI can do that for you. But if R is a letter to you, that's okay. You can bring in your native language, like English, for example, and be able to ask dashboard simple questions using your native language, like English, and be able to then show the data in response back from a standpoint of being insights and dashboard specific as visual in nature. What we want to do is take it a next step though, right, Brian? We say, hey, it's one thing to be able to actually derive insights. We have all this data now. We can make it visual. We can make it pop. But where do we go from here, right? So we want to share with you this concept of customer insights. You know, customer insight is the service that is a data platform service that is there to unify data and be able to derive insights. You know, at this point, you're looking at it like, oh, okay, what does that mean, right? What does it mean to derive insights and actually unify data? So for that, we go into the story of 360-degree perspective, right? You've heard it today in Ignite. You've been probably, if you've been around the CRM game, right, or any hearing from any software vendor that has relational data into an application development perspective, there's always this concept of 360-degree perspective. It's nothing new. If you put contact in the middle, you put organizational in the middle, you have things that you want to track about any given individual and organization, you have yourself a 360-degree perspective. What you saw today was 360-degree perspective. But how 360-degree is it? Is it a complete full picture, right, Brian? Because when we talk about 360 degrees perspective, you know, the organization that we work with have old mainframes that's still sitting on premises. There might be data that's sitting on PeopleSoft. There might be data that's sitting on Oracle. There might be data sitting on Azure SQL. We don't care where that data sits, but we would love for that data all to sit in Microsoft Cloud. But let's face it, we have legacy application. We talked about not ripping and replacing everything. At the end of the day, you'll always have these components that's disparate in nature that's going to be sitting outside of the confine of your particular apps that you want to present this quote unquote 360 degrees. So at the end of the day, your 360-degree view is really flat, isn't it? It's really just linear. It's just one slice of the information. You still have all these other components that disparate in nature. So if you wanted to know a component about your particular citizen, a component about your internal personnel, if you want to track about organizations that you are co-collaborating with, there's the B2B that you might want to know more about that organizations. It's very much still disparate because your disparate data are coming from these disparate sources. So with Customer Insight, and what's so exciting about this approach from Customer Insight is we can now pull all those external components and layer that next to our internal 360-degree and ingest that in a way where we can map and match so that the Brian Duncan that sits in our Power Platform CDS data, it's the same Brian Duncan that's coming in from PeopleSoft, the same Brian Duncan that's coming in from Oracle, so that we truly get a 360-degree view where we can enrich the data, provide the data. So using our contact tracing story and continue to deepen that, imagine coming in and actually pulling in national trend from a standpoint of where the pandemic sits, from a standpoint of demographic and regions and state and city. And on top of that, maybe perhaps pulling in household data, right? Or pulling in perhaps hospital data in a secured and compliant way, meaning just grabbing the data just you need so that you can actually have more information about that contact that you are having to reach out in terms of all the connection points, all the dots, and giving the full true picture of that contact that you're speaking with. So you get a much richer context of whom you're actually interacting with, right? Really, what it comes down to here is not just pulling in all this information, which is great, the ability to pull in all the disparate data and mapping and merging it, but at the same time, making that prioritize, isn't it, right? Because there's one thing bringing in all the data, it's another to just have another noisy box, right? How can we have this conglomerate of data, once we have the data that's pulling in from all these disparate sources, to actually use AI, machine learning, even have a teachable model to say, I truly care about this trend. I truly care about this demographic of people that I want to reach out to. I truly care about this slice of the region that is the most at risk. Let's go ahead and actually trend that and put that against our analytics. And by the way, the same way as Power Platform, bring your own device, whether it's mobile, browser, and being able to actually push that and extend that to the Power Platform story is why we feel Customer Insight just brings this insight capabilities of plugging in all the disparate sources and take it to the next level. So we're super excited where this can take us. We're super excited also to let you know that Customer Insight is now available in the US Government Community Cloud, brand new within the last couple of weeks. So if you don't know much about Customer Insight, please do reach out to your account team, check out the link, find out more of what you can do with Customer Insight, because we feel like there's so many use cases that we barely scratched the surface. We'd love to talk to you about this data platform concept and being able to pull in. So we showed a lot today, right, Brian? Like for some folks, you know, there might be power addicts on the call here. Hello, right? Folks that know Power Platform inside out, folks that are on the government. You know, since we've released this services for a few years now, there's a lot of people that's very well versed on the technology. But there might be some of you out there that said, hey, I kind of heard about this thing. I kind of listened to some previous webinars and sessions, just like what we're doing here today. I don't know much about the Power Platform. I just want to learn. You know, Brian, tell the good people, like, how do they get started for some people that are completely brand new to the Power Platform and start to play with the technology here?
Well, you know, Bobby, here at Microsoft, we embrace a concept that we call the growth mindset, right? Which is the idea is that you should always continue to learn. You should always expand your horizons. And so even people who, as you mentioned, are probably experts in the Power Platform, The ones that are true experts come up to me all the time and say, you know what, I love the platform because I never stop learning, it never stops advancing. And that's what we try to do. We try to cater to the fact that not only is it a living, breathing platform that continuously expands and adds new features, we try to shore it up with all that particular enriched learning experience as well. So first of all, you can simply go to our learning portal. If you sign on to any of your Power Platform maker portals, you can have there's a learning portal on the top. You can log on to our docs.microsoft.com. We also have a rich community of Power Platform and Dynamics developers and users. Often are some of my primary go-to responses for when I'm looking to solve a problem on any of our projects. Partner showcases are a great way to learn about use cases that are available for our customers right out of the box to be able to get you up and running or expedite the time to market. But one of my favorite things to do with our customers, and one of my favorite things to see from our customers' perspective, is take it for a test drive. You don't buy a new car just by looking at the specs and saying, oh, that looks great. You get behind the wheel and you take it for a ride. So we have things like at the App in a Day, our developer workshops, we have hackathons. Please do that. Log on, create a trial for yourself, and go on and start not only doing some of the self-learning, but log on to some of the learning sites, some of the YouTube channels that are out there that actually offer insight into the Power Platform. Do that, because when you take the platform for a ride, that's when you start to really see it, and seeing is believing in this platform. And Bobby, one of my favorite things is seeing one of our high-end developers that come in from one of our customers who's been developing in Java or .NET for many, many years, and they come in and they say, listen, I'm here, but you're not going to really be able to do what it is that I do with my source code. And I love to see that transition from day one to day two to day three, and they walk out on the other end saying, you know what, if you told me 10 years ago that you'd be able to do this the way that we just did it, I never would have believed you. And that's what I love about the platform, is it's really making a lot of believers out of what its capabilities are, and it's doing it in a manner that's really revolutionizing and transforming our government. And what we've seen recently is 10 years of transformation in about 6 months.
And what's awesome about all these components that you touched up on, right, Brian, right? In terms of like App in a Day and being able to do hackathon, a lot of this is really at no additional cost, right? We just, I mean, at the end of the day, we as Microsoft as a company has kind of grown up to be more community driven, right? So from a standpoint of being able to say, hey, our job is really to get you close to the technology, whatever at whatever cost it is. So in this case, we definitely want to implore, hey, take advantage of these free opportunity, because they really get you the opportunity to actually building these applications from scratch. And don't take Brian and my word for it in terms of, hey, this thing is easy to get up and running. Just do it yourself, grade it for yourself. Let us know if we're wrong or not, right? Because I can we can attest to how easy it is to get started, because Brian and I are continually learning, and we love this platform because of the flexibility and the agility to be able to take it to the next step without really much ramp up time to get started. So we hope that you get enough from what we mean by proactive customer service today. We use Power Platform. We use a lot of the components from a standpoint of configurations, low code, no code, and then more importantly, it's all in the context of government services. So everything that you're seeing here, if you're sitting in the US government community cloud, we didn't show you anything that was only available in the commercial confine, right? So you have that already available to you. So thank you so much for your time today. We'd love to connect with you. Brian, any parting words for the good people?
Everybody, I just want to wish everybody a safe Ignite, a safe time. I'm looking forward to the time, Bobby, where you and I can be somewhere and not necessarily have to be through a Teams channel. Not that I don't love Teams and I don't love the virtual communication, but I'm looking forward to time to be with everybody again. And the nice part is what I'm seeing with our federal and state customers. They're working to make that possible as soon as possible, and I can't wait. And please, everybody, have a fantastic Ignite. And thank you for joining us today.
Way to close it out, man. I'm looking forward to giving you a hug and a high five, Brian. Take care. Right. Be safe, everybody. Take care.
Everyone.